that despite Gage being grossly outnumbered and not getting the forces that he wanted, because the columns were kept in order in their retreat, and it was an orderly retreat, it didn't turn into a panicked rout. And also they had to wear these heavy wool uniforms in 85-degree weather. And 1 in 5 men had been killed or wounded or captured, but they were in danger for hours. When Percy relieved them, it helped them from not being completely wiped out. But it was due to this discipline that they weren't wiped out. As an interesting historical thing I saw about this battle, some historians wonder if the American casualties weren't higher because their record keeping wasn't as thorough as the British was. And sometimes records could be a little bit more speculative, and sometimes you wouldn't even have an officer directing troop movements, so it's hard to know exactly what's going on. So some have wondered if the assessments of the total fatalities or casualties couldn't have been a bit higher, but the numbers are so small that we're talking about anyway, it hardly matters. I mean, maybe the highest end would be 150 casualties as an assessment. But really, the British, like you said, hadn't expected the militia to attack their column at all. What militias were thought of weren't even fighting units, but basically social clubs where you would get together and drink and then fire off your musket once in a while. And there's no reason they weren't still that as the war went on. That's what the British thought they were, and not good for fighting anywhere. So,
they're still far from being a professional fighting force. By the end of the war, that'll change, but we're going to see George Washington is going to constantly complain about, these militia, they're just rubbish, man. Give me some real soldiers.
All right. Well, I think that sums up things pretty well. Any other thoughts on Lexington and Concord?
No, I think we covered it pretty thoroughly. It's the beginning of a much bigger war, as I already commented on, and things are gonna spread, and they're gonna get much bigger and much uglier.
All right. Well, as we like to do in series like these, we don't just go through the narrative, but also try to give some more context so you understand what's going on. The next episode, we'll do an excursus on British and Continental soldiers, so you can understand better what exactly was an American soldier going up against. How tall would a British soldier be? How would he be armed? What would his social background be? How were regiments organized? How was leadership structured? What kind of equipment do they have? If you could imagine what would be like walking around. So we'll get into all those things, and you can flesh out the war, and you can get a picture of it. So we'll see you in the next episode. Okay, so that is all for today. That's today's episode. Thank you for joining me. As always, I want to thank the Knowlton's Rangers, especially our spy masters, Todd Warren, Jake Harrington, Beverly Engel, Bill Ivey, Joyce Norman, Tyler from Colorado, Josh Reddick, Baron Fraser, Chris from Maine, Carl from Norway, Moondoggy from Ohio, Rick Knowlton, Vic and Irene, Mike from New York, Michelle, and Marlene. I'll explain what that is in a second. If you like the show and want to help it grow, there are 4 easy ways for you to do it. 1, like and subscribe to the show on the podcast player of your choice. This helps spread the word about the show. 2, join our Facebook group. Here we can keep the discussion going about new episodes, and you can talk about what you like and didn't like. And you can find this group if you just search for History Unplugged on Facebook. 3, we have an online store with t-shirts, phone covers, and other accessories featuring awesomely bad history puns that were crowdsourced by you, the audience. And you can find that if you go to public.com and look for History Unplugged, or you just go to historyonthenet.com and look for our store there. 4, and this is really the best way to dive deep with History Unplugged, and that's to become one of the Knowlton's Rangers. If you know your American history, you know the Knowlton's Rangers were an elite spy and reconnaissance group in the American Revolutionary War, but it's also the name of the membership program of History Unplugged. You can join at 3 levels. If you join at the level of Scout, you can hear all the episodes of History Unplugged completely ad-free and get early access to new episodes, at least a week early. If you join at the Intelligence Officer level, you get special bonus episodes, like a 10-part series on the World War II hero Audie Murphy, a multi-part series called Ottoman Lives about different people in the Ottoman Empire, and a series called Rendezvous with Death that looks at biographical profiles of Americans who went to fight in World War I before America entered the war. The last level is Spy Master, where you get all that stuff, but you also get 3 hardcover history books, Forging a President, How the Wild West Created Teddy Roosevelt, Race to the Top of the World, Richard Byrd and the First Flight to the North Pole, and The Last Fighter Pilot, the true story of the final combat mission of World War II. Another bonus is, you can choose a history topic for me to focus on for an entire episode that can go up to an hour, and I'll answer whatever question you have for me, and you get a shout out at the end of each episode. If you want to learn how to become a member of the Knowlton's Rangers, go to patreon.com/unplugged. That's patreon.com/unplugged. All right, well, that is all for my spiel. Thanks for listening to the History Unplugged podcast, from ancient Greece to the Cold War and everything else in between. See you next time.